Hello and welcome to my BookTube channel, Jack in the Book Stack, where I talk about a wide variety of book genres and the bookish lifestyle. In today's video, I want to talk to you about the books on my March TBR. These are the hopefuls that I want to read this month, although, to be honest, I don't know if I feel like sticking to a list right now. That could change though, because I typically love making a list and then I feel super accomplished when I can cross things off the list. It gives me a sense of control in a chaotic world. So I'm normally pretty dedicated to reading the books I put on my TBR, but right now I'm feeling kind of flighty. So I may read any of these books behind me. This is my physical TBR, my short list, mostly of standalones. So I could pull from here or the library. I don't know. I'm feeling wild. I have some ideas for some videos that I want to do this month though, so let's start off talking about some of those books, even though again, this may change throughout the month depending on what I feel like reading. But one idea I have is to do a spring recommendations video. The first day of spring is officially in March, and March is my favorite time of year too. I love springtime, I love the warmer weather. Here in Phoenix, Arizona, it is around 75, 80, 85 is pushing it a little bit for me, but there's lots of things to do like spring training games, and the culinary festival is coming up. So many outdoor festivals and activities. It's not quite pool weather, but it's getting there. So to commemorate this time of year, I want to recommend some spring books to you guys, but I want to see if I can add more to the list before I do that. There are two top of mind that I can add to this list. The first one is Anne of Green Gables. I have no idea if this is a spring book. No idea whatsoever. I haven't read it. So I figured I should check it out and see if it can make the list. I don't know too much about what it's about. I'm going to go into it relatively blind. I know it's more of like a classic. And I don't know why I associate this with spring. I don't know if it's that it typically has a pastel cover, maybe it has flowers on the cover. I don't know. I don't know why I think this might be a good spring read, so I need to read it and validate this assumption. The next book I want to read to see if it can make this spring recommendations video is The Secret Garden. This one I'm confident will be a good spring rec because springtime, gardens, flowers, like, come on, it's in the title. And I have watched this movie. I watched it as a kid, so probably an older version, but I think there's even like a newer one. Actually, that might be kind of cool to watch after I read it. I've never read the book though, so I'm excited to read it with like an adult perspective on the story and then also compare it to the movie that I've seen. And check out the spring recommendations video to see if this makes the list. In the not too distant future, I also want to make a recommendations video for standalone fantasy books. So I have a pile of some contenders that I want to read this month to see if they will make it to that list. I have heard amazing things about The Sword of Kagan, and I want to see for myself what this book is about and see if it's as impactful as everyone says. This is an indie published book, and I think it has a more mature female main character. I want to say she's over the age of 30, and I think she's also a mother. So those are some representations in fantasy that I don't often see. So I'm very intrigued. I hear this is emotional. I think it's a little bit heavier. I don't know if it's like a dark fantasy, but I think it's emotionally on the heavier side. So I will have to read this and see if it can make my list of top standalone fantasy recommendations. From the same author, M.L. Wong, I want to read their more recent release, Blood over Bright Haven. This is available on Kindle Unlimited. I'm trying to be responsible and read it there before I buy it to make sure that I like it. This made a couple of my favorite booktubers lists for their favorite 2023 reads. So excited to read this. It has like a dark academia kind of a tone and a strong feminist tone where women can only be entered into this apprenticeship or like this study program once every several years. And so we follow someone who's been accepted into that program. I cannot wait to read this. I'm so hyped. I think I'll try to read Sword of Kagan first so I can compare the works, but I think these will both be very strong contenders for the list. I'm also going to check out The Last Tale of the Flower Bride. I know nothing about what this is about other than it is very beloved on BookTube, and I want to check it out as a standalone fantasy option. So, Stay tuned because I'll read this either in that vlog I'm planning for Standalone Fantasy, or you can see it in my wrap-up at the end of the month. I don't know if Half a Soul really counts as a standalone fantasy. I have heard it described as such, and then I see that there are several books in this series. So I don't know if it's like interconnected standalones, how it works. I do want to read this month, whether it is in my standalone video or whether it's just in my wrap-up. You will have to stay tuned because I don't know where this one's going to fall yet, but I have been itching to read this because I hear it's a little bit cozier. It is about a main character who only has half a soul, so she doesn't feel feelings the way the rest of people do. And that sounds kind of quirky and charming. That's the tone I'm thinking this book will be. So I'll have to find out if that is truth and let you guys know in one of those videos. March is going to be the month that I continue with my Joe Abercrombie reading. Best Served Cold is one of 3 of his standalones in the First Law universe. So again, does this count as a standalone? It's from a set of 3 books called The Standalones. So I don't know. Again, if it's part of a set, if it's part of like a trilogy of 3 books, is it really a standalone? I don't know. So I don't know if this is going to make it in that standalone fantasy video, that vlog, or if this will just be in the wrap up at the end of the month again. But I do want to read Best Served Cold. I think, actually, I don't know. I don't know if this is the descendants of the characters in the original First Law trilogy, or if it's just in the same world but we follow different characters. Don't tell me. Don't ruin it for me in the comments. I want to find out for myself. But I do hear that this is inspired by The Count of Monte Cristo, or it has those vibes because it's a revenge story. And that is really why I am intrigued to pick this up. I love a good revenge story. Another video that I have penciled in for March, but honestly it might move because right now I'm not in the mood for this. But I might be tomorrow, who knows. But I want to read another classic. I'm trying to read a classic every other month and do a dedicated reading vlog, annotation guide for it. And the book that I had slotted for March was Don Quixote. That's a long book. That is a really long book. And I think the reason that I'm not excited about this at time of filming is because I just finished The Way of Kings, which is 1,000 pages. So right now the idea of picking up another brick of a book is not something I'm interested in. But I have all of March, and this one I've heard amazing things about. I've heard it's actually pretty funny. We follow an older knight, I believe, and he thinks windmills are giants and he fights them. He's lost in this world of fiction and books. I think he's a bookworm, and so he kind of bleeds, these books bleed over into his reality, and I hear it's funny and very, very entertaining for a classic, entertaining overall. So I am excited to check this out. I don't know if March is going to be the month, but I have it penciled in, as I said. Another reading goal that I set for myself in 2024 is to read 1 nonfiction a month. And I've been doing really, really good with that. I've actually been reading more than 1 a month. So I'm on track for the year to read 12, right? But I still want to stick with at least 1 a month. And I have a pile that I could choose from. So this one could switch up. But when I look at the pile right now, the one that I am most excited to read is The Widow Cliquot. So this is kind of like a biography about the woman that she was like head of the Veuve Cliquot champagne empire. And I had no idea, like this is a champagne that I drink on very, very special occasions because I don't got it like that, okay? This is a very pricey champagne. But I had no idea that like a young widow was in charge of the empire. So I am fascinated by that concept. I can't wait to read it. It's not that long. I think this is one that I could easily dive into and learn some cool facts. I have another BookTube video slotted in for March to read a series and do a reading vlog on it. And I had this slotted in. I didn't have a series identified, but the intention behind this plan was to knock out some of these series that are on my shelves. A lot of them are fantasy, although there are some romance, or actually there's some mystery in there too. So I guess it's a lot of different genres. But I want to start getting through some of these series and allow myself time to read all the books in that series, like 3 books or 5 books close together so I don't forget the details. So that was the intention, but I was looking at my calendar and I'm like, I'm in a standalone mood. And yes, I have those standalone fantasies I'm planning on reading this month for that reading vlog, but I don't know if I'm gonna want more. I don't know. So for the series vlog this month, I wanted to keep it relatively light, but still stick to the spirit of it. So for now, I have picked the Strange the Dreamer duet. So this is Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares. And I think, are these YA fantasy? I don't quite know. It's kind of one of those that I've always heard about. I've always heard of Strange the Dreamer. And then I got these beautiful special editions with like the stenciled edges that are so pretty. But I'm so silly because this is a case where I bought them not knowing if I would like the story or not because I hadn't read it. Very naughty of me, not very responsible. So I figured this could be a great time to read it. And since it's only 2 books, they are a little bit longer, but it's only 2 books. So maybe this will satisfy my restless spirit in March. The books we've talked about so far are kind of fantasy heavy and heavy on the classics as well, between Don Quixote, Anne of Green Gables, The Secret Garden. They seem to be heavy in those categories, so I want to try to give myself a little bit of variety, a little dash of darkness, if you will. So I am adding a couple books to my March TBR. First one is Rouge, a novel by Mona Awad. I like Mona Awad. I just rebound her book Bunny to a special edition because I like her work. It's really weird. This one should be commentary on the beauty industry, which is something I love. I love horror that has social commentary. And I think this is horror. If not, it's going to be like a darker literary fiction. But I think this will add a good contrast to the other books that are on my list this month. The last book on this TBR also introduces a little bit of horror, a little bit of darkness into the month. I really want to read The Child Thief by Brahm. I really love his creative horror. He does some cool stuff, and there's like some artwork in his books as well of the characters. Gives me an idea what I'm in for. This is a horror retelling of Peter Pan, I believe. So I think this could be a good spin. I've read 2 of his other books. I read Slewfoot, which is like a the Salem witch trials kind of setting, like that kind of stuff. And then I read Krampus, which is a Christmas horror where Santa Claus is the villain. Really liked that. Super creative. So I did not like Slewfoot, but I loved Krampus. So this one is really gonna see what I think of Brahm. Actually, I know what I think of Brahm. I think he's a brilliant author with a great imagination. Slewfoot just wasn't for me because I don't like the Salem witch trials. So can't blame him for that. I am optimistic about this. Brahm has nothing to prove to me. I think it will be fantastic. Those are the books on my March TBR. Again, mostly possibilities because I have no idea what direction my mood is going to take me. And this is all for fun, guys. BookTube and reading is supposed to be an escape. There's no pressure. Nobody's grading our book reports. We have to really remember that. There's a lot of books on this list. I don't even care if I just read one of them. As long as I read something, I'm going to be happy with myself. So there is absolutely no pressure to read a lot or read certain books. We can just have fun here on the BookTube. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in this March TBR. Happy reading. I'll see you in the next video.